welcome back to Downtime Activities, and welcome back to the Devils of the West, but not anymore. But we finished it. How are we back?
It's over,
but this time it's just conversation, no gameplay. Just talking head portion. Oh God!
Now we have to show our real personalities.
You die? You have to be yourselves for this one.
Foolish boy. See, the problem is a lot of our characters didn't really change from our personality. They were just an extension of us.
Especially Grunge.
Especially
Grunge.
And as we all know, Matthew Gottschalk is just the name of the body, not the soul inhabiting it. But...
Well, it's only a robot body, so...
That's true. So there is no soul. This is our post-campaign breakdown. We finished it. 50 episodes of scumbaggery, of Wild West yeehawing, and some spooky stuff along the way. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed running it.
While we're at it.
And the characters were all exceptional and fun and amazing. And we like to do these for our campaigns. There's some already on the channel. And this is kind of our just time to talk about it. You know, go over what happened, what we loved, fun memories, things that didn't come up that you wish they did, or questions you have from behind the screen.
From behind the screen.
It's probably worth mentioning. Spoilers.
Spoilers. So important caveat here. If you haven't watched The Devils of the West, pause this video, go onto our channel, watch the 50 episodes of hour-plus long episodes of this, then come back and resume this video. Thank you.
Or if you don't care for spoilers, just stay watching.
Or listen to all these funny stories and be like, man, I want to see that happen live, and then go back and watch all 50 episodes.
I want to see Metal Gear.
I want to hear how they took down Metal Gear
we did it with a sword, in fact.
Yeah.
What I'd like to start with is I'm going to shuffle this up, and we're going to draw cards to choose an order that we're going to be going in. I started with something pretty middling.
Do I get to draw 3
cards? No, because they're crit.
Yes. That means you're just going first every time on all of the prompts.
I could get Joker and just add somebody else.
Choose to go last. That is true.
You can interrupt somebody's answer.
But when you do,
not a good show.
But when you get the Joker, when you get the Joker, you still have to apply the +2. So you can wait till last, but you have to do 3 responses to every prompt.
I thought you drew the 666.
I did not. If you drew 666s, I think that's a sign.
So who has the highest card? I'm only an 8. So it's not
Queen of Diamonds.
I'm Diamond Spades, so
it looks like Queen of Diamonds is the winner. What I'd like to start with is a underappreciated moment of the game for you. A moment that you thought was great to you, that you don't feel like had its time or noticed as much as it should have been. Trickiness.
Yeah, this is a tricky one.
And you can't think of that, just a subtle little moment that was really fun and good for you.
I think it wasn't like one... I think probably the moment that was just really fun for me, especially with playing a character like Professor Bogus, was definitely our London arc where I birthed so much flamin.
What was the little underappreciated thing? Oh, that flamin I birthed.
Oh, that flamin I birthed. And pretty much it was between that and just anytime we ran into a mad scientist, it became a dick measuring contest between me and them. It was like, who had the better gadgets?
I really enjoyed, at times, blatantly mocking Bogus with the other, with your Professor Hogwash and Dr. Nonsense. Yeah.
I am Dr. Nonsense! You mean Skeletor?
Are you poking fun?
Yeah, and then you're like, I'm Professor Bogus. He's like, are you poking fun?
You're fucking with me.
Or hell, even the Bogus making fun of Bjorklund's accent. Not really.
Something that draws off of that I loved is your inability to not adopt whatever accent I'm taking up, and my then chance to, as in character, call you out on it.
Well, what was so like the thing?
Are you mocking me?
The thing with that was I was laughing so hard I couldn't not do the accent. Like it was just impossible. I really tried.
You were locked in.
If you watch the video, I'm really trying to like catch my breath and slow down so I could do the bogus voice. But I just couldn't, and I ended up making fun of Bjorklund's character.
All right, Will, the other queen. What's a small, underappreciated, or just like kind of smaller little thing that's not big story or anything like that, but just like you really enjoyed and loved?
I don't remember when it was. It was one of the many times Mohan died and came back. So I don't know if it was after the. I don't know if it was after like the bone. Like the demon bones that we had to fight,
old bones.
or if it was at Hyena's place.
I died at both of those.
So I don't, because it definitely one of the times that you died, there was this like really conversation I just really liked between Ed and Mohan of like the like. Look, you're not being straight about like who and what you are, and it's obvious there's something going on because like you've died 3 or 4 times, and even like this NPC says like who's in that body or something. Like I don't remember what the conversation was.
I think
that was a Hyena.
I think it was Hyena
because Hyena knew what
what you like, and all you said like back to me like as Mohan was like. Look, Ed, we're on the same side, and it was just like I love that moment so much. Like Mohan's smoke screens all through the campaign were just beautiful and excellent.
They were all perfectly executed except for I don't know. I
don't know why that lie.
You got it, brother. I don't.
Because my initial reaction was I don't think so, and it was my brain just like putting the kibosh on
Yeah,
that
like,
so hard.
like getting getting as far as I don't think in the middle of it, but saying I don't is like just the I don't think.
It's like put it in reverse, Terry. Back it up.
And Erickson was kind enough to not have the NPC like really react to that, but like the smoke screening like across the board was always like so good, and like dodging the questions and stuff was a lot of fun. But it's like for some reason I just love that it's like just. It's a moment of honesty, but not even like full honesty. Like there's just something about that response of just like, look, Ed, we're on the same side. Was just really cool. Mm-hmm. And I've always really liked that moment.
All right, I think 8 of Diamonds is next.
Oh, over there.
Small underappreciated little moments.
I was just kind of really proud that Jefferson's story kind of panned out. It's just that it's hard in this setting to like it's hard to notice when it's not like a movie and there's like close-ups with like emotion on your face and like orchestral music and stuff, but like kind of this just
Sephiroth.
Yeah. There's that Latin chanting behind you.
Yeah. But anyways, it just the way it turned out that it's like he's the saved man, and then he's kind of getting pulled back into his old ways, but it's for good, and he's kind of wrestling with that, and then all of a sudden he becomes a vampire, and it's just like, how are you a vampire and a Christian and like not being able to walk into the house or into houses and not in churches and reading the Bible and stuff, and then it just kind of perfectly rounded out at the end where he finally just like was able to go to church, and then he prayed, and his prayer was answered,
and that's what led to the final.
And that's what led to the final thing, and he was fully confident after that. I thought it was like a very subtle arc.
Yeah, I think I mean, it was that reformed man, right? Like, he was reformed in every sense of the word, changed into a new form as a vampire, and that whole metaphor was beautiful, and I couldn't have made it work out better if I intended for it to. And it was cool because it was like, you didn't come to me before the game and be like, I want him to turn into a vampire at some point. Like, you just happened to go down in the fight with the vampires, and that's how it worked out. And so those things and how like perfect that fit into your character's arc was chef's kiss. Yes. I've got an 8 here. My subtle thing, my little thing that I love, ties right into that, and it's a Jeffress moment that I talked to you about after the session happened, because I noticed it, but I don't think anyone else really did. And that is the time when old Sheriff Jr. showed up to challenge you to a duel, and you actually had some wisdom and didn't just shoot the kid, and had that like conversation and like directed him on the right path. That was the first time Jeffress called you by your actual name instead of foolish boy. After that conversation, he actually called you by your name, and there was this moment of like him the entire campaign like being this like, oh, this poor misguided boy, what can I do to help this boy? And then this moment of like, okay, he's making a change to the better, and like showing you like just a iota of respect there, and I thought that was awesome, and I caught on to that in the moment and just loved it, and I had to commend him after the session because I thought it was amazing.
Good character acting.
Absolutely.
Positive affirmation.
Caesar Milan says you gotta do 3 things: exercise, discipline, then affection.
If any of you talk over my dramatic speeches anymore, I'm gonna start peeing out the squirt bottle.
Oh, is that what I need to do to let my villains actually monologue?
Well, there's a difference between in and out of character actors. In character, I blow those up. Anyway, that's me. Who's next?
I think it's the Fiver.
So for me, I think one of like the subtle things that I really liked about like this campaign is I feel like the way all of our characters were like so different in personality wise, but how we interacted with each other was like I had moments where Professor, I was like, we were at the hospital together, I'm like, you want to talk about girls? You know, or like,
I want to talk about science.
and like, he was like, get me out of here.
Get away from this man.
And how like me and Mohan kind of had like our own like he was obviously the main good guy, but I was kind of like his like.
You're my Lancer.
Sure. The Lancer, the opposite. Where I was like the bastard of the group who was like, yeah, I'm fucking cool.
Crimes.
You were the actual criminal of this. The actual active criminal.
And like everyone like, you know, I trying to get Ed to like dress up more girly and always like dogging on you for being like such a manly girl, and it's like, you know, and then Jeffers and I like obviously like foolish boy, and I'm like, what the fuck do you want, man, you know? And it was just, I feel like all of our relationships together and how like we portrayed these characters were like just so fun for me like the whole time.
I completely agree. It was such an interesting cast of characters. Everyone was like very different and filled a very different role, even if some of you were like, I'm a really good gunslinger, and I'm also a really good gunslinger. Me too, but with 2 guns. Like, you know, like mechanically there was some similar characters at times, but they played very differently, even in combat and in decision making and the way it all worked, and the interplay between people was just sensational.
The personalities were all different enough that it even though some characters felt similar mechanically, you could tell who was always doing who was doing what, or who was going to make this decision. And
it felt like no matter which groupings were together, it was a different and interesting conversation or story that could get told by it. Like, I loved another, I'm cheating and I'm doing a second one right now, another subtle little moment that was amazing to me was when the old timers shared whiskey with the bartender. And it was literally just old guys sitting at a bar sipping whiskey being like, foolish youth. The world today isn't like when I was young. You know? Like, it was just that exact moment. And then you have like the professor pulled out of that and put in with Grimes in the hospital, and you have the conversation you have.
Or else Professor and Grimes when they went to the suicide cult.
Yeah, we guys went up to the mountaintop.
little lady, be better.
Be better. But like each individual pairings or trios made for such fun interaction, and the whole group together was just awesome. All right, round us out, fearless leader.
I think for me it was like just like the creeping horror of a lot of stuff, where it's like, especially the teeth disease.
Mm-hmm.
That was one that really catches me. Because as soon as you said like what's something like that you enjoyed that wasn't like super safe, and I just thought, and I'm like, oh god, jeez. And it's just like, but it's like that creeping horror of like a supernatural like disease, and it's just like, oh, like, but, and then it's like trying to find the cause and worrying about like, are you gonna get it? Like, is it, yeah? How do you how can you save people? How can you help if like it's just like it's a problem you can't shoot your way out of, and like because of the nature of these kinds of games, like that's just kind of the, I'd say like the least horrifying thing sometimes of like, yeah, it's we got Frankenstein monster, we just shot him in the head like 12 times.
Bone fiend, we just have to crack that skull.
Yeah. And so it's like there's like things like that where it's like it can be horrifying, but like action is the like response, and it's just that idea of like this is something that you can't shoot your way out of, you know, like, and there is like, at least in this case, there's like a cause of things you can do, and that's obviously what makes for a good like RPG mission. Like it'd be like, oh yeah, they're all gonna die of plague. There's nothing you guys can do. It's just, you know, it's like what? That'd be terrible. It's like, but it's that idea of like, yeah, how do we deal with this? And like as an RPG, you have like, oh yeah, we can track who it's intentionally done, and there's like a cure, and you can figure that out. But it's like just that initial setup of like, yeah, how do you like shoot a disease?
You can't shoot a disease. And that whole arc, I know I've kind of talked about it, I think with most of the group, but the whole arc of the denticulosis was spurred off a trip that I went on to Savannah, Georgia, where I stayed in Savannah, Georgia, and there's cats creeping around all over this town that literally everywhere you go, you're walking over dead bodies because of a terrible plague that was there. Super theoretically haunted city. And their jokes were made about the not cats that we kept talking about, like, oh yeah, all those cats are not cats. They look like cats, but if you look closely, they smile at you with human teeth. And I was like, what would their like purr sound like? And that led to the with human teeth. And I was like, well, that's terrifying. How can I use this? And then combined with some of my medical side was like, aha, we have our heading. Which spun into that whole denticulosis arc, which was freaky and fun.
The only other, to cheat and say too as well, is Sheriff Brick was always just a joke that I loved.
The running like, Sheriff Brick.
It's just like, they're just sitting, because it just started so early that it's like, Mohan's just like a jobber, like he just goes into a fight and gets killed. It's just like, how come he gets killed? Well, somebody has to
There's always someone with the Sheriff Brick, you know? They know you're coming, they've got the Sheriff Brick. Someone's waiting around the court.
It was like, who's going to walk through this door first? Well, obviously it's going to be Mohan. So obviously he's going to get hit by whoever's waiting in ambush, you know?
I think one moment for Mohan that was for one interesting, but also we made so many freaking jokes about it afterwards. I think it might have been like the fourth time you died or something. And you're at the bar, and they put, you know, the evil bartender pours the evil juice, and it's like, do you want that? Yeah, I'll take it. Down to no problem.
Just being so offended, like the next session when somebody makes a comment, like Scratcher or whoever makes a comment about you backsliding, and just being like, what? I'm not making progress towards my objective. Like, how did you miss the whole symbolism with the evil juice? Like everyone's just yelling at you. Like, yeah, in the middle of it, I go, it's symbolism.
Symbolism.
It was an interesting like imagery moment for Mohan. But then the amount of shit we gave you for it, that everybody gave you for it afterwards.
100% one of those, like, just dumb. I'm just like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. In the moment, hey, sometimes there's a lot of people at this table that sometimes don't see overt symbolism when it's thrown in their face. And we might get to that later on in this video. I think we're going to do another round of card pulls. Ace of Spades, that's a good start. It's a good start.
Ace of Spades.
This time, I want you to try and pick your single favorite moment of the campaign. Might not be easy to do, or at least one of them. Crit Fisher.
Chris Fisher.
Josh Duck.
So the Ace of Spades. Oh god, I don't want to go first. Oh no! Please
the
skip
whole
my
game.
turn. Personal favorite single moment. Well, that's impossible. I think that it's tricky, but I think a single favorite moment I had was the arrival in Bayou Town, Holter's Parish, after returning from London. When you guys arrive there, it's kind of that whole end of that episode where you kind of are trying to track down this person who picked up the letter. You realize that's a person from Holter's Parish that you know, and then you, with that, like, guide back to Holter's Parish, and the moment you, like, pick up the tranquilizer dart, and there's that, like, oh, this isn't for tranquilizing the werewolves when they're made, this is for tranquilizing the people before they're werewolves. And that, like, aha moment, like, it hit so right, and like, you guys chased it down in such a cool and, like, mystical way. That was like a chef's kiss. I love that part.
Yeah, I was, that's pretty out there for me. Like, I really love the...
Well, you're next.
I really love that.
Well, I stole it. Haha. Now you have to come up with another one.
I did really love that reveal. I think it's like, it was such a, like, we didn't see it coming, and it was just, like, perfectly placed right at the end of that episode. I don't know about a single favorite moment. The first time Professor Bogus, the first time anybody in the campaign, but it was Professor Bogus, shot somebody in the dick. But he gives a pithy one-liner first. Where like,
this is the future.
Because he sasses, because he's the fight between the mad scientists, and he sasses the other guy's like bolt gadget, which is just like sort of two like lightning rods. He just like
his mundane bolt gadget.
He just like sasses it, gives a pithy one-liner, and then just shoots him in the dick.
which in all honesty, that triggered a whole like cascade of whenever one of us gave a one-liner, it led to a really funny moment or a bad moment. Like in Jeffrey's case, Shane shoots Grimes.
Turns and shoots Grimes in the back.
That's danger of cursed weapons, man. I really love that moment just because I feel like, because it happens in like, it's like the
like
episode 3 or something
30,
like that. It just like, it sets the tone for like the whole campaign so well. It sets the tone for Professor Bogus so well. And it was just like, and it's the fact that it's the one-liner before
this is the future. Bam!
Bolts his dick.
Was just really wonderful. And I really like the moment that Professor Bogus, like the whole kind of episode where Professor Bogus is like undeniably exposed to the supernatural, and then Jerry took that level up to buy off the like Doubting Thomas hindrance. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's such a cool character moment, and it's like, to me, it's like that is the true transition into madness moment for Bogus. Like, he's this crazy mad scientist before that, but like that is such this like no holds barred, like anything is possible, like moment for Bogus, that it just
Professor
like,
Bogus is Monster
whole,
Bogus. I'm saying that's gotta be a thing.
It just steers his whole like arc from that point forward, and it's I for some reason like that moment I just like have really liked, of just like Professor Bogus just like having to deal with like all this stuff he's just been saying is hogwash the whole time is undeniably real. Mm-hmm. But like that made the rest of our work a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it went from nobody say anything to the professor to all right.
Hey, Professor, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Sir, interview, sir.
Professor.
Doctor, over here, Doctor Bogus.
I'm not a doctor.
It's really I could mention so many more moments, and probably will over the course of this. But.
Mm-hmm. Who's next?
Justin.
I have kind of like two. One is when me and Ed go take the cursed amulet to the and I'm so scared that I run out. I'm like, I'm done. And then that priest hates us forever.
Poor brother Benji.
Poor brother. And then we kept bugging us. But
I told you not to come in here.
but my favorite part was, like, I guess a fun moment for me in the campaign that I still remember is like when we go to the mayor's house in Raskatoon, and you all are inside fighting. This is my shots with the squirrels.
Not having like no notice, not noticing.
Not a damn clue.
I'm just outside. Missing squirrels. Just
Well, and that was dire too. Like I went down in the first
You got
round from an
Yeah.
ambush,
gone.
and like
Yeah.
Jeffers is just like struggling with this werewolf in the basement. And, like,
But because you're outside just shooting.
No, correction. Jeffers was the one who got right away.
I think that's when I got.
Yeah, Jeffers
Oh.
Jeffers gets bricked.
Yeah.
yeah.
You get into a drag out fight with a werewolf and or like a half werewolf and go down. And Professor Bogus and Ed have to like save the day, but you're just like Crime's just like outside shooting, which makes the townfolk be like, we hear gunfire, and they like come to see what the issue is, and they find you dead, him unconscious, and the mayor and Spears dead, so we all get arrested. But then is the next morning when like you miraculously wake up.
Yeah.
And you're just cruising around putting all the pieces together and like putting the town back in order, and the three of us are in prison. I don't remember exactly what triggered it, but you said something about like, it's like, well, if we weren't all so useless, like you wouldn't have to be doing everything or whatever, and I went, useless? I killed the mayor and Spears! And the guy was just like,
you make that comment because instead of letting us out to like
I'm
be
being
an
an asshole,
asshole,
yeah.
he's being a dick about it.
He's
and
like,
let
no, you
this
guys
thing-
can stay in there for a minute while I figure this out.
trying to prove how useful I am by admitting to the terrible crimes that I have.
I feel like that whole part of our campaign was just so amazing too, and then a constant like callback or a constant like joke is Grimes having things between his butt cheeks.
The gold bar between the butt cheeks is absolutely a great call.
Like that
Pearl
started
Grip's
the whole
pistol.
saga of Spanky as well.
It did. True.
Just like being afraid of everything and like afraid of water and just like running off for sound of gunfire.
The balance of Spanky and Gideon turned out to be
A real yin-yang sort of deal
Yeah.
there, absolutely. Absolutely.
What happens when you have absolute bravery?
Absolute
against cowardice.
An unstoppable force versus an absolutely movable object.
It's already moving. He's already
He's running. Oh, he's running.
You run already.
All right. I think you're next.
I'm next.
Throw a moment out there for us.
Man, I just loved the dealings with Scratch.
Yes.
Honestly, I thought that was fun. It was for me especially because like you with Scratch always questioned Jeffers's. It was always the thing that was always in his mind. It's
Mhm.
like, am I falling back and I'm no longer saved type of thing, and it was fun to like. It was hard to like kind of respond that because like I also had the shamed hindrance, so
Yeah.
I was like, well, like how much do I play to the shamed thing, and how much do I hold to my convictions that like I am a reformed man, like
Both devout and shamed is very interesting.
yeah, and it's kind of like this like, but it's not you know if you follow like the true like gospel, it's like it's not my works that even made me righteous, and so it's like it was very like it was just weird like balancing that. It was like I think it was very real. Like I think that's something that real people deal with all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
When
I
I
think,
talk to the devil, yeah.
He's always said something.
I think that I
He's
mean
always
for
telling
me,
to stop drinking the
Scratch
evil juice.
Scratch was an absolute pleasure and like skill tester to RP. Because like the way Scratch worked notes wise, like I don't know what you guys are gonna say. I've got some quirky one-liners and some cryptic advice and wine bottles to distribute, but I have to like playing a suave, creepy character is tricky to do, and it was very fun but very challenging to kind of keep it up and like be able to bounce off of your guys' rebuttals and like keep that like silver-tongued devil thing going throughout, and it was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed the little Scratch interactions and
Always fun.
and I think that I don't know. This might be a decent time to cut in and kind of talk about Scratch in like.
Do we want to finish these?
Let's finish these, and we'll come around to that.
And then we can talk about scratch and detail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think mine was the mecha fight. I just thought that was so fucking cool. Where
It's
it's just
the
like,
steampunk.
well, because we're thinking about like, well, what's all the uses for this like new metal and like all this stuff, and it's like, here's use for this new metal. I was like, shit.
And I loved the like each time you ran into a mad scientist, it's like, all right, what kind of mad science is this one? And he was like twofold, and it's kind of like, oh, there's something here, and there's all the jokes were made before about, oh, this guy's gonna be a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I was like, yeah, he is, but little do you know, there's 3 forms: Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Optimus Prime. And having the like Russian nesting doll of boss fights and stuff like that, all that was just very fun to run.
Well, I think also, I mean, that whole like heist was also fun because it was like us trying to use all of these tools that we'd accumulated, you know, like we have
teleportation and a flamethrower.
Well, and what was the we had something else as well that was like, but that's what I mean, is like all of these tools that we'd accumulated and like knowledge we'd gained through our adventures, and then it's like,
and
okay.
Mohan's ability to just smoke screens.
Right. Well, he's always
a little
had
bit of
that.
magic there and there's med.
And I thought that was a lot of fun. And it was also, I mean, it was also us testing out like a new tool like that teleportation. Where it's like, can we use this? And it's like, yeah, we can, and it can have some pretty cool results at the end. It's like, it's tricky and finicky, and sometimes it doesn't work great, but that's magic.
That's magic, baby.
And I very intentionally, like, I talked with Erickson about this some behind the scenes, like, I never wanted Ed to, like, really be good at, like, being a witch.
Right.
Like, I never felt like that was Ed's character, and I didn't want to, like, lean too heavily in it. I thought the little dabble was interesting, and we got really good use out of that tool, but it's like, but it just ended up being so much more fun to have Ed just be a shit witch.
Yeah.
The whole time, where it's just, like, trying to do, like, every time I tried to teleport Potter, like, and I tried to teleport Potter a lot. Like, teleport him up to the balcony of our headquarters every time, and could just never do it. So, like, we'd return from an adventure, and he's like, hey, Potter, and, like, shake his hand and try to teleport him. It's just like, and, like, nothing happens. Like, damn it! He's like, what did you do? Did you curse me? It was just, like, it was always a lot of fun, but, like, so it was fun in that whole, like, heist that, like, the tools actually got used, and got used, like, in a way that they worked. The mech fight was pretty cool.
That was fun.
That was just kind of the culmination of it that I thought.
And it was something I enjoyed about that kind of whole arc was it was your guys' first time facing a competent mad scientist. Like, all the other mad scientists leaned heavily on the mad and not so hard on the scientist. And this was the first one that's like, he has this, like, he's this, like, wild biochemist and this wild engineer and, like, does these crazy concoctions, but he's, like, a very logical, thorough, like, successful mad scientist. And it was a good moment to kind of show that ramp up from, like, yeah, you're getting into you're in the inner circle now. Each step is closer towards Gladstone is moving up his hierarchy of, like, okay, this guy actually knows what he's doing. To kind of prepare for that final fight.
This guy's actually just Jeff Bezos.
Actual Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
I mean, it was steam, not electric powered, so I don't...
Same difference.
Gladstone would probably be the Jeff Bezos, like the South Park iteration of Jeff Bezos.
Or Mickey Mouse. But we don't need to get into South Park equivalents. Okay, I think you're the last one, right?
Yeah.
Throw out a moment.
This is cheating just because and I brought this up. I just playing Bogus and seeing how much of the mad science stuff played a factor in the story. It was just always so funny whenever we encountered the mad scientist or whatever. And again, I'm gonna say this: it became a dick measuring contest. And I think my favorite moment was especially the last moment when we finally defeat Gladstone, and Bogus has to pull like a whole 360, come full circle, and use one last quippy one-liner before he blows Gladstone's brains out. It was just it was always so fun when we encounter those mad scientists. It's like, okay, who's more mad? Alright, it's a battle of who was more mad, but also who was more competent. And
who was more mad? Who was more scientist?
Bogus was both. He was both the most mad and the most
those interactions were always very fun. Whether it was you having your dick measuring contest with the other mad scientists, or just other people like the Professor Contagia date night was hilarious. Absolutely phenomenal.
One in the top 10 for sure.
I think the funniest one was when we ran into Professor Hogwash and Dr.
Nonsense.
Nonsense.
I don't remember if that was.
I don't remember the orders, I guess. And they're just arguing with Ed and whatnot, and I'm just like, Ed, I speak mad scientist. Like I push
Excuse me, ma'am, I speak jive. I think was a joke made during.
Yeah, I think that was a joke. That was
Professor Nonsense, Dr. Hogwash.
Yeah.
Billy and George Hackett.
Yeah.
This is the like, oh yeah, let me check with my brother. And he just like ducks out the back door and takes something.
They run and jump into a minecart.
And like we just sit there for like 10 seconds. It's like,
Shit.
they're running.
I think you like one of you made a perception or whatever to like hear what sounded like a minecart moving or something. Yeah. Yes, absolutely hilarious. Really quickly, I guess going back to what I was saying before, talking about Scratch. Scratch was very fun to roleplay. I enjoyed the interactions. I think that I'm happy with how everything turned out with him. He is the enemy, like the villain of the campaign, without being the villain of the campaign at all. And he wasn't heavily involved in the plot. Like he didn't really set anything against you. He wasn't a villain in any real way. He was just there to say some spooky shit. But the goal with him at all points was always to drive you guys towards whatever your corrupting influence was. So, like, his whole thing was, like, introducing some self-doubt. It was, especially for, like, the pious character, is making them doubt themselves, whether they're worthy or not. For the mad character, it was just like, oh, let me point you where the nearest mad scientist is so you can add his notes to repertoire and do more heinous acts. Like, it was literally just like, let me just facilitate subtly you guys continuing to be villains. And with like Grimes was like, I've got no advice for you. You're already a criminal scumbag.
No, it's fun.
And the like he's always trying to remind you of your past. Like, oh, we used to ride together. We should go ride again. And like always try and bring up that shame factor.
Well, I believe you. It's over a year ago now, so I don't remember exactly. But didn't you like ask? Kind of in secret, like ask everybody, like what each character's greatest fear was. I believe that was at least something you were talking about. I don't know if it's written on our character sheets because I don't think it's part of the questionnaires because we did the questionnaire all together.
No, questionnaire, but
yeah. I seem to remember.
I think that might have been for planning purposes of like incorporating into the story, but. Absolutely something that I don't remember if that was used in early Scratch stuff or not at this point.
It would make sense.
I liked the interplay with Scratch, and I liked the eventual, like, Ed being like, I'm over this shit.
Well, it's like, to me it was like talking with Hyena, where it's just like, he's like, because there's lots of people where it's like, we've been talking to the devil. And it's like, look, we deal with supernatural shit all the time, and I don't really believe you. But like, Hyena's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, fair enough, like, stop talking to him. Whatever he's telling you to do, quit it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just this moment of like, it's like, that's a fair point. That's totally an option of just like, so like, there was from that point forward, it was just like, no, if he wants to talk to me, he's going to have to track me down to talk to me. Like, I'm not going to make it easy on him anymore. Like, it was talking with Hyena that kind of just like fostered that change. But yeah, just like,
I love Hyena. Hyena's one of my favorite characters of the story. Do we want to talk Eyes of Providence? That could be something to go. Or do you have any questions related to that or other things?
I have one. From the start of the campaign, was your plan to always have Gladstone, like just this overarching story with Gladstone, or was this kind of something that developed as the story kind of...
Gladstone was always the big bad evil guy. The details were built over the course of the story.
So pretty much at any point he could have been anything. He could have been. What I knew from the start specifically was that Dr. Gladstone
writer of Pulchra Prodigiosum, the book you find in your first adventure arc, was going to recur in the end to become the big bad evil guy of the story. And I knew that the story was going to be directly related to lycanthropy, and that's why that lycanthropic connection at the beginning was going to matter. The specific details of zombie, cyborg, werewolf was little bits and pieces added throughout. Like, it wasn't like necessarily, oh, I have to do something this next session. We'll add cyborg to the list. Like, it was just like, as I went on, incorporated more stuff, had more ideas, I fleshed out the details more. The whole overarching plot there was not established from the beginning. No.
I kind of wanted to ask, I don't necessarily have a specific question, but I just kind of want to, like, talk about Spindly Norman, I guess.
Okay.
Because, like, Spindly Norman is a character that often got referenced, but we didn't ever end up going back to. Like, we talked to him twice and then didn't go back. Like, was it just out of a desire to kind of do, because having not even a similar character, but a character that got to some degrees a similar reaction out of players in a older D&D campaign, with a sort of all-knowing seer. Was it just sort of a desire to have that kind of character and just screw with the players? Or, like, was there kind of, you know, like, a specific goal you had in mind? Or would there have been, like, a quest line there if we decided to explore it?
And what was he, too? We had to make spirit checks to go inside.
So he was... The exact nature of Spindly Norman is at its very core weird and mysterious, and that's the point. He was not human. He was a creature of some abyss, some weird source unknown. The whole point was he was a weird, like, creature, something bordering on demonic, but not quite there, who wasn't evil, wasn't well-intentioned, was kind of childish, really, in his like, cognition, who was, like, found and thrown into a circus to be a seer, and then left behind when the circus went through that town, and then took up residence there. And it was more of an idea of a interesting, weird NPC to exist. I loved this mental image of this, like, wild seer that's like another worldly being, but that has this kind of childishness to him, and literally, like, spindly and long and lanky and creepy, and that exemplified by him sitting in a child's desk when he meets you. That mental image was very evocative and interesting to me. And he was really there more as a tool for you guys than a plot tool for me. He was really more there as, like, we're really stumped on this. Maybe Spindly Norman knows something. And then I can throw some, like, weird little seeds or ideas out there. And he was never meant to be a big part of it. He was always meant to be something that only was as big as you guys felt like involving him. And only throwing little bits and pieces out there if you wanted to go back and ask for them.
What was the whole point?
So why'd you make the barrier to entry so expensive?
Because it was hilarious. And I didn't want it to be overused. I didn't want you guys to be like, oh, Spindly Norman can actually see the future. It's only 25 cents. We might as well go to him for every issue we have.
Well, it doesn't matter if we can't understand a word he says.
True.
Well, what was his whole thing about? What did he tell Grimes? Babies don't drink
Babies
wine.
should not drink wine.
It's a pretty blunt metaphor.
Yeah,
an elderly, like, not elderly, but like a refined, fine woman who's, like, intelligent and driven is too good for you, is what he was telling
I know
Grimes.
that the second he said it, I was just like...
Grimes maybe didn't, but you, Jocelyn the human, knew that.
Like,
Babies don't drink wine is like, babies drink milk. You're a baby. This lady's wine. Stop trying to drink wine.
Okay, because I felt like that was what you were going for, but part of me was like, no, they can't be like that, can it?
Yeah,
it was absolutely that.
Like, basically, Spindly Norman's like, she is way out of your league, bud. Like, don't even try. And I'm like, I'm gonna try. As the character player, I'm like...
But keep your eye out for any alcoholic babies. Troubles afoot.
I love Italy. The village drunk is only 4 years old.
But... yeah.
Works up, downs 3 bottles of wine.
I love that I like got a hindrance from him and having a fear of Spindly Norman after like visiting him 2 times, and that's what like I was like, what the fuck is he like? And I kind of forgot about it until Jerry brought it, or like we're just talking about it now.
The very like origin of him, I could come up with what the specifics is, but the point
Yeah.
it's like who Mohan was before the story. It's weird and mysterious, and we don't need to know.
Well, that's one of the things. It's like that's one of those questions where it's like now that we're operator, we're just talking about all stuff. It's like, do you have an idea of who Mohan was before he?
The whole like
or the soul that inhabited Mohan over the course of time. You know,
it's mostly
Was it
that,
two
like,
shot? Was it two shot Dill?
Frankie Two Guns?
Frankie Two Guns.
It
I do want to
wasn't-
ask about Frankie Two Guns.
It wasn't ever Frankie Two Guns. It's one of those like Erickson really left it up to me to come up with who it was, but I was like I would settle on something like at the beginning it was like some carpetbagger, like scam artist kind of guy, you know. But at the end I just couldn't really like
You couldn't accept any real answer.
Well, it was more like I couldn't come up with like a proper backstory. Like, oh yeah, I sold my soul to the devil and got reincarnated, or I died with some kind of regret. And I'm like, I just couldn't pin down something that like felt really good. And I was like, it just feels better if I just leave it
I
as.
think that's totally fine.
And that's kind of,
you
to
know.
me, that the point is that your backstory probably wasn't very interesting. Because
Exactly, yeah.
you are a soul so middle of the road that the divine was like, do-over.
Exactly.
It's like,
and that's how it really ended up was I was like,
right.
the whole point is that the character that I like originally based Mohan on was like a detective that got brought back into life in a sense. Like he was like a ghost possessing another person's body, and that was like the idea. But it's like it was like a shared consciousness. It wasn't like I'm puppeting a dead body, so it didn't really fit because it's like, well, I'm already a Texas Ranger. He can't be a detective and having a Texas Ranger like that's just the same guy, you know, and not like a guy pretending to be, you know. So I was like, yeah, at the end of the day, it just worked out where it was like, yeah, he was just some middle of the road dude that was like died and was like, that's it, that's all I got, and then he comes back and he goes, shit, this is a lot harder than I thought.
and now you know that, the afterlife is real.
Yeah.
The gravity of the situation, you're like, this is you get to choose what you do with this do-over. If it's bad, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah,
It's kind of the thought.
Save the world.
Right.
He needs to drink evil juice.
Well, and the thing is, like, there was absolutely, like, let me see here if I can find.
How many more deaths were you?
Oh, there was essentially indefinite deaths
Yeah, it was a story.
within reason.
Yeah. So long as I wasn't abusing
But for
it
quite
to
a while,
say,
I had a Matty G good versus bad tab. Things of like, you went to church, you saved Rascatoon, stopped a serial killer, you helped a vampire, you killed the Hammer. Like, this, like, tally going of like, you're doing good and you're doing bad. And overall, you were more good than bad. Theoretically.
He did enough to get into heaven.
Well, the big thing was, like, at the end, it was like, I'll go to hell for this person. And that was an act worthy of not going to hell. It was like the kind of twist at the end. Which, another aside here, I wrote the poems before we played the last. I wasn't sitting back here typing them. The story worked out perfectly for yours to make sense, and that was. I love when the dice do that. Yeah. And honestly, like, if I could have chosen for who would have died and been the person that you would be saving, it would have been Grimes. Yeah. But the dice just fell how they did, and it worked out like in a really cool story way, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
I really love.
And that's just how it goes. Like that's what makes it D&D fun, or D&D. I mean, tabletop games fun like this, where it's like, oh yeah, like that just happened to conspire in a way that like our collective imaginations just like make it happen.
Made it work. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the thing with Mohan, where it was like I didn't really have a solid backstory because I couldn't come up with anything that like felt really right. And if I could, Mohan's character was so much about like smoke screening and playing it vague that it just like felt right to just keep going. Like, oh yeah, I was a traveling salesman. That's
Fleece
kind of
some people.
that was kind of the.
They never hurt anybody. So
Yeah, if I had to pin something down, it'd be like, yeah, he's like from like northeast the United States, traveling salesman kind of guy, where it's like it's honest work, but like he's still trying to sell you something, and he's supposed to be good with his words.
It's the author is dead, right?
Yeah.
Like intentionally leaving things vague and letting people fill in the gaps on their own is ultimately much more fulfilling quite often than filling them in yourself.
Yeah.
What about Frankie Two Guns? I have questions about two specific NPCs that we never actually met.
Frankie Two Guns. I always had an intent for Frankie Two Guns to show up, by the time I had come up with what I wanted it to be, we were kind of on the fast track, and I just never found a gap to throw it in there. But I had the idea of an encounter where a rugged-looking outlaw was going to recognize Mohan and
Go
freak out and run away. But
He knows something.
but that never came to fruition. But the Frankie Two Guns was just an outlaw who happened to kill a ranger, and if he saw that ranger alive later on, he would have been really confused.
Yeah, I was just like, I just spent the whole campaign expecting sooner or later we were going to run into Frankie Two Guns. The other one that we never actually met was Colonel Mohan.
Which I think I'm convinced was just a way to get me to fucking pucker my sphincter. Like,
Also, fairly early on, and it's something we've thrown around at this table a lot, is like, be careful what jokes you make at the table. Because if the DM likes them, they might become canon.
Oh god, how you made that comment during one
yeah,
session.
fairly early on, someone accidentally called
Captain
called Corporal Mohan Colonel Mohan, which is like corporal's like just above the bottom and colonel's just below the top. So, but it was very funny, and I said no, Colonel Mohan is his father. And Erickson immediately got that look on his face of just like
modify memory.
Yeah, it's like oh, I could tell Erickson took note of that joke.
You mean Colonel Robert Mohan, war hero?
Exactly. So when
There's a statue of him somewhere.
Yeah, so then when we're crossing crossing the border that time, and somebody's like, any relation to Colonel Mohan, the war hero? It's like, oh, here it is.
That's when the dissembling started.
He did a good job of smoke screening, and I wasn't going to force it down his throat. But that was absolutely an interaction that could have happened. He existed. He was an NPC in the world. Colonel Robert Mohan was a war hero of the South, but was very busy fighting that war. And some random soldier running into you going like, oh, I met a guy, his last name was Mohan. And he'd be like, oh, that was probably my son. He's a ranger. Like, that'd probably be the end of that conversation.
Yeah, it's
so it wasn't something that felt like it would be natural. I wanted to allude to it for the fun and the humor of it, but I didn't want to like force down your throat that it was.
And for like a character moment for Mohan, it was very much like, I've already like puppeted this guy's personality for his wife. I don't want to do it in front of his like father on top of everything. Like I already have to pretend to be Mohan in so many like these social situations
With rangers, with your
rangers,
wife, with your hometown.
Right, but
like,
we wanted to see it.
I know. It's just that as like the character, he would not seek that out. He's like, it's already hard.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there was absolutely a chance that it would be forced upon you if you guys fucked up in some way. Like, if crossing the border, you piss off the South, all of a sudden you're in irons back at the capital, then maybe that's when I would have brought him in.
If we had ended up in a military lockup or in prison somewhere out east, it's much more likely that would have come out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there wasn't a natural time to put it in apart from like the brief asides like that, just to hint at it for the fun and the humor of it.
But always fun. I was gonna say my question had to do with the sword and like the angel. Like the angel was on a mission to kill the Illuminati.
Essentially,
that's Providence.
That arc. Where is his name? Oh, he's probably earlier in the notes. He was decided pretty early on as a side deal. Let's go to.
Because part of me is like, should we just let him go? You know,
in retrospect,
in retrospect, potentially.
Yeah.
So Cassiel Shepherd was the name he was going by. You never got on his trail until you were in his trail.
Yeah.
But Cassiel was essentially a fallen archangel. A archangel who was, for what like, kind of overly extreme, and not in the like, peace be with you, and the like, peace be with you, so long as you follow exactly these tenets and all evil has to be dealt with. And because he was so flawed in his mindset, is like, cast you down, like rip off your wings, cast you down to earth. You need to learn how, like you need to learn the error of your ways. And he's like, I have made God angry. How do I fix that? Well, killing evildoers, of course. And I've seen the most evildoers are this secret organization, and so I'm going to track each of them down and kill them. So he was a fallen angel on his mission to get his wings back, completely misunderstanding what his mission actually should have been.
It's one of those classics of like, if our roles had been slightly different or we'd approached it slightly differently, maybe there would have been like a conversation or like a talk or like he would have been a side character, but instead he was a mini boss. And
Yeah, and he was decided upon early on. I didn't know how your guys before you met Herman Lancaster, before you met the governor, and the whole idea was like you were going to probably have to pick a side in this, and it just kind of depended. Like neither of them were going to be overtly aggressive to you, depending on what interactions you'd had with other ones before. And just the way things worked out, your interactions with the governor initially were pretty good. And he was kind of able to schmooze you a little bit to the where you had some level of trust in him. So by the time Cassiel was murdering Toad, you were like, we kind of work with these guys, so we're going to defend them.
At the very least, they're useful tools to us, and we're useful tools to them, and we need to continue to use them.
The problem was you met... you didn't meet Hyena early enough to realize what scumbags the Eyes of Providence truly were.
If he'd been the first one we'd met, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
It's how it goes.
Well, I thought I think Jeffers was like he kind of caught on because he's like this guy's trying to do God's work in the name of God and all that stuff, and that's what I kind of thought. I was like, he's like a fallen angel or something that thinks he needs to take everything into his own hands.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffers is like, I thought it was kind of a cool dynamic. I think we talked about it a couple times. It's like, but Jeffers is also right there, kind of doing the same thing, because the whole reason Jeffers was even on the posse was because he was like, well, I guess God's wants me. Taking care of this evil or whatever, use my skill set to take care of this evil. So I thought that was actually kind of interesting.
The dynamic, the comparison you can draw between the two of you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fair.
Well, if we hadn't killed him, we wouldn't have gotten Gideon.
It's true. The truly the greatest character.
The real hero.
The real hero, Gideon.
Listen, I'm just saying that Gideon fought like multiple mecha werewolves at the same time, so he's
no joke.
He's
no joke.
A
It's funny that you have
sure.
the similarities, and you ended up with
At least
Gideon.
3 horsepower.
Yeah,
You know
closest
what
one to that fall.
And
saying a lot.
technically
Talking
with the
about
sword,
actual
right? Did you ride off with the sword?
I think
No,
I
had the
think
sword.
I ended up with it at the very end,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Jeffers is probably a pretty good person to give it to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeffers is gonna outlive everybody, so it's like
Unless Bogus can make himself
with those
Professor
shenanigans
Bogus
that it was like the bad guys want the sword. I'm like, I'm gonna freaking throw it in the ocean. I swear.
Yeah.
I would
no
throw
one's
this
getting
anywhere other than everybody who's like, hey, nice sword, can I buy it from you?
It's like, just because you're asking, no.
I really love the Eyes of Providence. I love
Oh, yeah,
the
they're
whole
totally
organization, and I love the, like, they're not the bad guys, technically. They're absolutely not the good guys. And I love this, like, kind of, I don't know, the shadow government side of them, and this, like, we're going to do the right thing by our opinions, and regardless of the cost, and, like, life for us is fairly indefinite, so we don't put a bunch of value on it. That whole
Apart
mindset.
from that big war tearing the country in half, we'll just maneuver everything behind the scenes, just keep that going for as long as possible.
So that's an interesting piece of the Eyes too, is that there was some inner conflict, which you guys saw bits of like, I don't remember exactly what, but like some like little comments made by either Lizard or Toad about how dumb the other was, and that's because they were kind of the two that were warring between the Eyes of Providence. Toad was, because of her family connections, was like essentially in leadership of everywhere in the South and the person wanting to push the South forward in that war. And Lizard, did you guys ever really, like, I know you figured out he was a Sandman, did you understand like his role at all?
Yeah, he was, well, because he was like a mind doctor, so he was kind of using that to like manipulate politicians and generals.
He was essentially doing like sleep psychosis because he's a Sandman,
Right.
and giving dreams and thoughts to the leaders of the North.
That's how you're supposed to hypnotize people with the sand, not use it as like a clairvoyance thing.
So the sand was a kind of a plot device too, and it was like you could have. I had a couple ideas of how it could be used, and whatever you guys tried to do, if it fit one of those ideas, I'd do it, and if not, I'd be like, man, let's think about how it would work in this situation.
Yeah.
It could be used as knockout powder. It could be used...
Never worked any of the times we tried it.
It could be used to alter people's dreams, especially if they were asleep. When you were using it as like a scrying, the person had to be asleep that you were scrying to
Right.
see.
Yeah.
And they had to be something that could sleep. So, like, you tried to scry your brother, I think. He was already undead at that point.
Yeah, my period.
And so he didn't sleep. There was no way to ever scry him. That's why you never felt the connection there. Or you would, when it was like, you're trying to scry, what's his face? Dr. Or, Mecha Hitler, yeah, whatever his name is.
That's why it mattered so much what time it was.
That's why it mattered so much when you're doing it. And I did the like time difference with where you were versus London, and like what time it would be, and if you'd be sleeping or not. And so that's how it worked for like the
and
scrying.
that worked totally fine. It's just like, yeah, it was like we were kind of like puzzle. It's I liked that it felt that magic felt so unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that maybe if I went back and was like little things that we liked was like because we part of it was just a statistics thing of like
But
this you're just not you're not
It's like
super
our
great
only
spellcasting.
magic
Right.
user, and when it came to magic for us, we were like, how the fuck do you use this thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is this thing?
I have a 1 in Arcana. I don't know how to use freaking.
For Bogus, it was definitely like, man, magic's supposed to be this all-powerful thing. It's useful. It's just completely useless. There's only one kind of magic you can trust, and that's science. Because I think I only had one fuck-up with any of my science rolls.
Well, I mean, you failed at science rolls plenty of times, but
I mean,
like
my
catastrophic.
weird science, like nothing.
It seemed like you created a lot of opportunities of like being able to use the supernatural. And it was never like this one works and this one doesn't. It was always just kind of like you can pass the roll and it works.
They can make it work. And I liked that a lot of times it was in a form of temptation that you guys were like overcoming, but that like magic knickknacks were accumulated over the story and how you guys interacted. Like you had an overpowered weapon from the start, and surprisingly early on we're like, no, I don't want to be overpowered anymore, and got rid of it. And that was a super cool moment for Jeffers. That's like, and that kind of carried on with like some of the witchy things that were presented to you as like potential loot items. But you're like, this is taking my character. This is not what Ed wants. She doesn't want to be this witch of the swamps with her human skin book. Like she's not evil. So she turned that down and copied it over to something else. And I think that it was kind of cool to see your guys' interaction with that. And it was cool that there was no spellcaster or true, like, holy spellcaster. The only spellcaster in the group was the scientist. And so later on, a witch who was, like, very just dipping your toes in those dark,
I had
dank
very
waters.
niche, like, utility spells. Probably didn't use them nearly optimally.
Niche utility spells are the best kind of
That's
spells.
the best kind of spells.
They
Facts.
were pretty
Big
spells.
facts. But yeah, that like just little bits of interaction with the mystical and the fact that it was like unreliable and it depended on the source of it, and like you guys absolutely know that it's real, but that doesn't mean that it's always going to work. And the times you saw it work, it was working against you with more practiced hands.
Yeah.
I was
Typically.
surprised, and I can't believe I didn't the whole campaign. Until like that last moment where I'm just like, I wonder if I just pray and succeed on a spirit roll. I wonder if that will help us.
And I wanted religion in a mystical, like, regardless of your opinions in the real world religion, like religion, almost taking that D&D side of religion and in a light way brushing it into the real world of like, there is real, like, action that takes place. There is mysticism and there's stuff that summoning demons and this kind of thing is real, but it's not reliable. And these almighty beings, these omnipotent creatures of spirit worlds don't really give a damn about you. And like that's kind of a harsh thing with like the holy side of it, but like I wanted that to kind of be part of the sense of the whole story.
Yeah. Well, it's the I was thinking of it as like the Discworld thing, where it's like there's not a lot of atheists in the Discworld because gods are real, and walking around going gods aren't real are a good way to get hit by lightning. it's like all of our characters, I think, when we did like our initial like questionnaire, except for maybe Bogus, were like, oh yeah, we were Christian at some point, or are
Born and
Christian
raised
currently.
Baptist.
Yeah,
Born.
and it's like. And it's
Were
like,
you baptized?
especially-
Born and raised Baptist.
yeah, it's like especially after like meeting
Fantastic. Years ago, too.
angels and devils and all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, you can't be an atheist in this world. Like, it's not if you're in the know.
Not if you're
like,
in the
you
loop.
know that, and even if you're on, you know, not the side of the divine, it's like, you know it exists, and thus the opposite exists, and thus there are forces beyond your ken. Like, you, like,
And in
that's just a
terms of,
fact.
like, which side you're on, like, the skull is a muddy topic, but you really technically killed one demon and one angel throughout the entire story.
And one...
You're a weird... and one thing, kind of two demons with that skull of a demon. It was really more the magic imbued there, but that doesn't matter. But really, at the end of the day, like, it was a 50-50 shot whether you guys were on the good or the bad side of that moral spectrum.
When you're at the end of someone's sword, they're the bad guy.
They're the bad
It's like,
guys.
that's just how it is.
And also, I'm pretty sure Bogus was... Bogus probably was more leaning on the evil side for a while there, because he was just like, alright, I'm just gonna shoot him. No, don't shoot him. This isn't how this works. Kill him.
He was just over it. He was over all the nonsense. Any other questions? Any other things you guys
I don't think I had...
wanted to know about or understand that
I
you
could probably
didn't?
come up with more, but there's none on the top of my head.
Any fun things you feel like you wanted to share?
Anything we missed that you feel the need to talk about?
Some hook that we just
Oh,
ignored.
you know one
brutally?
thing we could talk about?
That's a bit-
There was a whole side quest in Raskatoon that you guys just did not give a damn.
Oh, that's old then. That's like, wait.
Oh,
Literally,
that's
Nettlewood
been carrying
Grange.
this-
The
that-
cattle ranch and dairy farm,
Oh,
Nettlewood
yeah.
Grange, that every single motherfucker in town you talk to was like, yeah, everyone's starving. They got plenty of food up at Nettlewood Grange, but that guy won't give it to anybody. He's a real jerk. He got armed guards. He's hoarding all the food up in Nettlewood Grange. And guys are like, yeah, well, keep starving. We'll get to the bottom of this.
Do you want to know why? Because every single NPC told us to do it. It's like, this is a red herring. This has nothing to do with why this town's falling apart. This has nothing to do with the sheriff that's disappeared. It's like, yeah, the guy sounds like a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
We could just kick down the door and deal with this, but this isn't, like, we'll kick down the door and deal with this and be like, damn, the solution should be right here. Why'd we shoot all those guards?
The only real solution it was to people being hungry.
Yeah.
It wasn't the solution. It had no tie into the greater
And
plot.
I think that was my thought, was like, it was a very, like, in-universe thing for them to be saying, like, yeah, of course all the hungry people are gonna be bitching
This
about the dude that
freaking
has
guy
all
over
the
here,
cows, you know. But it's like, to me, it wasn't so much that it was a red herring as it was that it was not mission critical, you know. And it's like, you guys are starving, we're going to solve the thing that's, you know, keeping you hungry rather than feeding. It's like give a man a fish, you know.
Yeah.
versus, yeah.
Versus kill the evil mad scientist where he's trying to fish so he can go fish some more.
Yeah, well, and I think it's it's kind of like it's like a game thing of how I play games as well, where it's like, if it feels like the main story quest is like timed and critical and people's lives are on the line, I don't do side quests. You know, it feels very disingenuous to be like, I'm gonna go check the bounty board, chase down old 70 Sam, you know. It's like, people are dying. Like, the city's on fire. Like, you just like walk up to like a guy with a question mark over his head, like, hey, could you give me like 3 fish? And it's like,
I need you
Go
to
to the wilds and hunt me 6 wolf pelts.
yeah, exactly.
I need you to pick me 3 flowers.
And it's like one of those.
Meanwhile, the evil archdemon is marching his armies.
Yeah, and it's like, for Raskatoon, it wasn't as serious, and it would have been like, oh, you did a side quest that then like
That
helped
lengthens
the
out
town.
the clock. Yeah.
Right, but it was kind of one of those, like, I don't know, I feel like we're on the case here, like we're going and getting them. So
This person's been kidnapped and they're about to be sacrificed to summon the demon. It's like, well, this is a Bethesda game, so that quest, I'll be just in time to stop it, no matter when it is.
When I decide to show up.
So
Yeah.
first, I'll go finish up these 2 major quest lines that I haven't done yet.
which like these like tabletop games, I don't think suffer from as much, but it was still like that feeling of like, yeah, we can go talk to this jerk and try to get him to give us food, but it's like, but if we just finish the story quest, we also just solve the problem. So it was kind of like, go maybe commit some murder on some jerks, or
And we were a little less willing to just throw that kind of muscle around at the first session.
That's also true.
That's true. Did you? I mean, I guess you, Moth, of the Eyes of the Providence, you could kind of tell was you, like the same sort of situation as you, but had just figured out how to like ride the line as long as he was like literally his advice to you was going to be to like commit heinous acts if you feel like you're doing too many good things in a row, to constantly ride this line and live forever, because that's what his goal was.
His goal is to live forever. Yeah.
Did you guys have any guess or idea what was up with Hyena? What Casavius actually
I always
was?
thought Hyena he had like a magic artifact like he gave to Grimes. Like he had something
He had
like
the
that.
Ankh necklace that was keeping him alive forever. He was by far the oldest member of the Eyes of Providence. The like kind
He's
of
like a crusader, I would guess.
before we're talking like ancient Rome times. Like he was somebody who
Literally like Casavius, like he was.
his
like,
name was Casavius. He was literally a Roman. He was literally like as a legionary.
That's lucky that his
kicked-
name kind of came back around.
because you really just knew him as Hyena. He literally like kicking in a treasure hoard of somebody in Egypt when marching on as a legionary, found this weird mystical necklace and then never died.
Right.
And so he was this like very wise, but like also the least threatening of the Eyes of Providence, because he was immortal but a human being.
But he's just a dude, yeah.
He didn't have any special magical
Well, that's a
powers.
good thing they invented guns. Now he's most powerful.
Listen, he was probably a hell of a guy with a gladius.
It's like he was very he knew a lot. He just physically wasn't all that scary.
You want to see what 1,500 years of practice will do to your swordsmanship?
Fuck all. You
I
stab him with the
I didn't
pointy.
practice.
I didn't practice. But if I had,
I definitely loved his house too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course you loved it. It's eclectic, like old stuff all over.
That's totally my thing too.
Yeah.
I like the like treasure hoard, like
Yeah.
mishmash stuff all
I
over
still
the
wish
place.
the portrait had been a
Secrets.
portrait of him.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna have a giant painting where that I'm gonna stick a shotgun through, I want it to be a giant painting of me.
I don't know, it felt very Scooby-Doo. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
Whatever happened to the guy and his monster son?
Oh yeah.
That is a good question. So that's another one of those that's like, it's a mystery. Who knows? Let's leave it as a mystery. I had some thoughts of if you traveled back through the area in the wilds, you might come across the unfortunate remains of the father, because like it was the intent was eventually out in the wild, like trying to get his son away from this. The son's gonna make a mistake and accidentally kill the dad, and then become this monster of the woods, basically.
He's gonna be Sasquatch.
Yeah.
He's gonna become Sasquatch, essentially. Yeah, this kind of bulbous. And that was the thing. Is like he wasn't cursed. It was like a unholy, like what's what I'm looking for. Like his birth itself was an unholy evil thing that couldn't be like taken away. He just was the way he was, and that wasn't something that could be fixed.
Yeah.
It was meant to be very sad and dark.
It's a tone setter.
It was a tone. It was a tone
struggled with
shifter.
that.
It was
I did.
absolutely a tone shifter too, because I know that we had. This was a campaign of a lot of like super goofy and super serious moments, and that one was meant to be one of like, we're having a lot of fun, we're being very goofy, but I want to bring it back to the like gothic horror, like there is no right answer, the monster is a monster, but it also has good side, kind of moral dilemma to kind of put that weight there.
Take it away from Young Frankenstein, a little bit more grounded.
Yeah, a little more grounded. I didn't want him to start singing "Putting on the Ritz" down in his dad's basement of Harpentry.
Exactly. Harbinger.
What was the scariest, grossest, worst part to you?
Bugs.
Bugs.
The mind bugs.
The cable car bugs.
Bugs. I don't know. I don't like cannibal stuff. That was like with the cannibal butch.
The
The butcher lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lady.
The cannibal
Mistress S.
Yeah.
That one was also a tone setter for sure.
It was like funny, but it was like I don't know. I just don't like cannibal stuff.
That's-
so
yeah.
that's just
totally
me.
fair.
It was freaky.
I think up there as well as the Bone Demon. Like
The
that
Bone
was like
Going
The
into
bone
going
demon was,
seeing
let's
the
say,
skull.
bogus straight.
Yeah.
For me, the spooky part about the Bone Demon was the whole lead up to it.
Yeah,
It's the whole, like, it wasn't necessarily the fight itself, but it's the whole, like,
The ambiance of the setting was
it's this like tune that they're also excited about, but we've got it on good authority, that being Spindly Norman, that shit is about to go down.
It's that Chekhov's gun thing where you're like, there's a bomb under the table, and there's a bomb under the table.
Well,
but you
my thought was like we'd go into the cave and it wasn't anything like that was in there. It was what was surrounding it. Like we were gonna encounter freaking Draugrs from Skyrim.
And the big like circle of protection carved around. It's got a very sort of Slavic horror element to that, like to the setup to that whole like area. That like that's what I found kind of cool and spooky. Like the fight itself is like.
It's fighting a big scary monster.
We've played enough tabletop RPGs that it's just like that's just the thing you do.
Oh, thank God, it's just a boss.
Oh, this was just a boss arena. Sweet. It didn't just one shot any of the NPCs just to make a point that it was a boss. Oh, okay, we're fine.
We're good. It's fine.
We can hold the line.
Wait, the game just auto-saved.
Just this chest right outside of this door has 12 healing potions.
Wow, look at this box full of rocket launcher ammo. You put that back. We're leaving.
We're out of here. Yeah. What else?
Spindly Norman was very creepy. Like actually, like I was like playing up like as my character, but I was actually pretty scared of him. Like that's something that like I love horror movies and stuff, and I love like creepy things like that, or like creepy like entities. So that's why I'm like really happy to find out that he was more like a demon thing, because I was like, I don't know what this guy is, and that was like really cool. It made me a little bit more scared of him, that we didn't really know what he was. And
I think for you especially, and Jerry along with this, is like he has some resemblance to an NPC I've used in the past.
We have more familiarity.
You have some more familiarity with like that build, that Link long build body is literally based off of my childhood sleep paralysis demon. Like this is literally where the I used to have these terrible sleep paralysis nightmares. I'd be locked in my bed, and there'd be somebody so lanky and tall that they would have to like hunch over to go through my doorway towards me, and they'd reach out towards me with these long hands. Terrible, horrible nightmares as a kid. And I turned that into an NPC just as a throwaway NPC way back in the day.
It was like, I need a joke NPC to be the
sleep paralysis demon.
I fucking love this guy.
I love this guy. We're coming back every day. And so I just learned to lean into it. But yeah, that kind of lanky, creepy sort of thing is like, I have very vivid thoughts of it from that, and so I feel like I can portray it well in an unsettling sense.
I don't know. I still the audience won't know about this, but this one's for like the people at the table. I still think about Leonard and how he was just such an excellent, like how he turned into such an excellent character, where it was like shopkeeper turned to warlock patron that was just like so good.
Well, just the bit where we find out that like my old character has been resurrected by our enemies, and they're like trying to sell him to a demon in hell, and we're like, we gotta go rescue him. But it was just like going to Leonard. It's like, Leonard, can you send us to hell? It's like, of course. We're like, and bring us back. More difficult. It's like, I'm glad we asked that.
God, we had the foresight to ask that.
I'm so glad we asked a second question for that.
That's still like one of my favorite just long run, because you get long running characters in these sorts of games, and Leonard is just one that always stuck out to me as super good. So whenever his reincarnations appear in other campaigns and stuff, I'm just like, it's one of those. It's this guy again. It's like there's familiarity, but there's no joy.
It's like, I'll turn my sleep paralysis demon into a creepy NPC. We love it. Give us more. Oh no. What about Werewolves of London? How mad were you when you figured that?
I love
it. Was
that song.
hilarious.
I loved it. It was great.
It's just one of those little homages that's just like.
It was super fun. I that whole part was we're going to London.
The London arc was so unexpected. It was so unexpected.
Leho Fuchs.
Honestly, what I was really hoping for the whole London arc was for it to be longer and for us to be spending a chunk of it working with a Scotland Yard detective, just this just because it would have it's like Mohan's English counterpart. Like, I think that could have been just like, I think that could have been a whole really fun story. But that's also like, that's what the Rippers campaign setting is for. Is like Victorian Gothic horror. Speaking of which, if we wanted to do a follow-up to this campaign at some point, we've talked about like, what if we did it in the 1890s and just went like full steampunk? Because that's the way this world is going, with people like Professor Bogus.
Right.
What? Bogus says, building a giant steam-powered mech.
It would be interesting to see, like, we've kind of played with that Gothic. I guess this one was still very, like, mad science-y. But it would be interesting to see, like, mad science, like, is edging out the Eyes of Providence. Like, there's, like, a rival group. I mean, it doesn't have to be, like, literally the Eyes of Providence, but it's, like, yeah, the world used to be controlled by, like, these super old vampires, like, behind the scenes, and, like, you know, secretly witches and vampires ruled the world. But, like, because of mad science, they've been edged farther and
Magic
farther out.
versus science is always an interesting...
The hands of exile.
When it's, like, just, like, I think it'd be really fun to come back to the setting just because of, like, you know, for somebody to play the healer of the group and be, you know, trained at the Bogus Medical Pavilion. Like, references like that are always fun.
I did my
residency
at the Bogus Medical Pavilion.
But it's like,
I remember that guy wasn't a real doctor. Is that true?
Rumor has it.
I think it'd be cool to come back at like the 1890s and use a lot more of the Ripper stuff. You'd want to do the same thing you did with this, where you're like, the lore.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird.
I don't want all these
that.
trained barons running around.
It's just like, it's just really some of the Ripper stuff is really weird, but like it could be fun to just go like full steampunk with the sequel to this campaign.
I think it'd be fun. I mean, what I love about Savage Worlds is I just always want to take one of its little utility spells and break the hell out of it. every time that I see some, because this campaign I didn't get to play a spellcaster, or didn't get to. I chose not to. But,
I wouldn't let you.
I'm thinking of playing a spellcaster. No.
Your fun is wrong.
It's just I love how it has all these little niche spells that are just like little niche things, and I'm like,
I could break that.
I bet I could break the shit out of it.
Well, and with the trappings, like the way you can like modify the spells and stuff is so cool.
Oh yeah, I mean that in and of itself is super fun.
And part of what I love about Savage Worlds in this system, I think, or this campaign, I think, helps to show that off. And some of the other stuff we've got planned is just like, we can run that Savage Worlds.
We can run
whatever it is. Oh yeah, we can run that.
It's a very versatile system.
Like, well, it's like oh yeah, Savage Worlds just has rules for this thing I need rules for.
Yeah.
Which is why I was able to run like a Treasure Planet campaign, because it was like, hey, like, I can run anything in Savage World, so what do you guys want to play? And I think it was kind of Jocelyn's idea was to do, like, Treasure Planet. It was just like,
that was a super fun story to play.
Yeah, Treasure Planet, to me, as a kid, was a staple movie, like, of my life. Like, I love the shit out of that movie.
I have an important question that I think the person I'm going to ask will have a hard time answering. Actual first names. Can you name a single person you slept with in this entire campaign?
No, I threw that information out the window when I was trying to be so Grimes.
The only one I remember right now is Nora.
Nora Stein. There's Katie, which is in here as Grimes' love, which was the one who took you up to the mountaintop, I believe.
Okay.
Took him up to the mountaintop, alright.
What was Contagious? I mean, Delphine was was Toad,
Wasn't
but
Contagious,
you never
like,
got to get her.
Of course not. She was basically wine.
Yeah.
You know?
She was basically wine. Constance Wilson was Professor Contagious' actual name.
That's as plain a name as Alfonso Lopez.
That's why they have to build these grand personalities.
That's the insane mad scientist names, and just like that, like that being the plot of the whole back half of the story is like every corner we turn, it's a mad scientist. Literally everything we do.
Most normal mad scientist name. I mean, Hodges, but he had two with Dr. Kinker and Mr. Hodges. But it's probably Dr. Bjorklund because he's just Yervin Bjorklund.
It just hits the point where it's like we can't go anywhere in this country without running into a mad scientist.
It's almost like we're hunting.
There was like two mainstays with this campaign that was always come up. The crazy bullshit was always caused by mad scientists, and whenever we were looking for him, was in a basement.
There was lots of basement.
And we always get our information at the nearest bar.
A lot of information.
That's just D&D.
That's just
Mad sprinkles of mad scientist, and that's just any RPG.
I walk into a tavern. You see a mad scientist. Stab him.
Well, the fact that
A
like
fine move.
at least like a couple of them we didn't have to kill. Like it wasn't every mad scientist we ran into. We just started blasting immediately. Like just arresting Contagio was very funny.
Or the brothers where we're just like, listen, we're not trying to kill you. Like we're
not trying to fill in all your minds and burn all your research. We're just trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Well, and like those guys were like the least evil. Like we just found a really cool, like we're just material scientists. Like,
we're just rock nerds.
We found a rock that's super cool, and we want to study it.
And we sold it to a guy.
We sold it to a guy.
Who did you sell it to? That's all we care about.
The first.
Yeah, exactly.
Jumps into my cart, rides away, and sticks a dynamite out the back.
I really enjoyed that. Did you guys have fun with the minecart
Yeah.
chase? That was. I wanted lots of different little like the minecart fight, or the rail cart fight with the bugs, and the minecart fight, and like kind of interesting settings, mobile settings, and like if you're interested, transitional combats. There's a good video on the channel about transitional combats.
I often refer to them as set piece battles, like fights that aren't just
you're in a room
or like in some sort of like arena or like type stuff like that. Like fights that have something interesting going on that are meant to be a big sort of set piece
fighting
of their
on the edge
art.
of the volcano.
Right. The fighting from the mine carts or being stuck in the little box on the
trying to get your
Yeah,
face eaten off by
and
ghouls
two,
as you crawl through a hole.
Doing that fight, like, you just feel so trapped, and it's just like...
I just didn't want... I'm so glad nobody died in that fight. Like, all I could think of is, like, because I'm fine with losing characters. You know what I mean? It's like, it's sad, but it's like I get to roll up a new character.
Into the bugs.
I really did not want to lose Ed to the bugs on the way out of the line.
That one was
so
brutal.
All the bugs, the bugs going inside, rises around.
This is twice now that we fought ghouls in one of these campaigns, and I continue to hate ghouls so much.
Twice.
Because they're so hard.
Almost anything I run in Savage Worlds, I end up using the ghoul stat block.
They're so difficult to deal with, like from their lore perspective of like, oh yeah, we just like live underground in these warrens and you can't fucking get us.
Yeah, Erickson made that whole ghoul hunt.
Oh yeah.
Like honestly, like probably much harder than I did in the first Savage Worlds game, where you guys were like on a couple of different incidents hunting ghouls. Like
I bet it's like that. It just like great enemy design, like super fun, but like me trying to like think of a way to deal with them, I'm just like
you army crawling through the ghoul hole, like you diving into the ghoul hole, and then like tug of war to get everyone out of the ghoul hole was such a fun like back and forth.
The next time we run into a ghoul hole, I think we just burn them out as Plan A. It works pretty good as Plan B.
Because it's just like it's my brain of like how do you deal with an underground infestation of vermin, and it's like. You don't. It's so fucking difficult. Like, from like a logistics perspective, from like any sort of perspective. And like that's just like gophers. Like that's just like normal sized, like maybe even large rodents. It's like human sized, human strength, underground like vermin. Like fuck no. God no.
Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
I don't think they exist.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just like, oh man. So that's more of a Matty G thing of just
that
like
was super fun. Like for me, I loved the ghoul hole thing. That was a blast.
It's another one of those things that just set the like gothic horror tone so early on so well.
Yeah. Well, and the witch and like the like the whole
unraveling the reason behind
that was a lot of
ghouls.
Fun. Yeah.
And the lock-in.
The reason behind the ghouls, the story around the ghouls, great. Ghouls, fuck them.
Honestly, where a lot of that came from was like. The ghouls, I thought of the Graveyard Book, and like the ghouls that like grab him, or like they're like the monkeys from the Jungle Book, where they're just like tossing him around and running with him, and they just like dive into a hole near a grave and drag this poor kid with them, and you're like, oh shit. I'm like, oh yeah, ghouls, man.
And I like using the ghoul stat block a lot, just from H.P. Lovecraft has ghouls show up in like. Kind of two of his stories in particular. in like kind of interesting ways. So it's like but it's like I have used that stat block in almost every Savage Worlds thing I've run. At one point or another. So for like as soon as we're like in a graveyard hunting something that was eating bodies, it's just like we're about to run into a stat block that I've used a lot that I'm pretty familiar with.
But I'm happy to use it in a way that was very different and challenging in a way.
It was a lot more like the very first time you guys ran into ghouls and just like
Flashbacks.
actually having to fight them in the tunnels. And,
Don't fight in a basement.
Yeah.
Don't fight in ghoul tunnels. They're fucking
The most obvious is don't involve a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known is this. Don't fight ghouls in a ghoul hole!
there's rules for
Don't fight ghouls in a
ghoul hole.
ghoul
Don't fight in a ghoul
Don't
hole.
fight in a ghoul hole.
Don't fight ghouls in a ghoul hole. Never split the party.
We did that.
Jeez.
We did that.
Split the party. We have a video on the channel about that too.
Well, it's also that was my first time of looking at the spell list and going, I like this spell. This spell looks good, and I just like that's gonna be my go-to attack spell.
Stun. Ooh, barrier.
That those spells don't do any damage. Damage.
I'm
How
just-
pedestrian.
What do you think?
Well,
What do you think I'm trying to do? Have a high, Katie? No.
And Erickson and I have talked about. Keep slightly bumping that.
You ruined the string.
You keep ruining it. How
Erickson and I
dare
have
you.
talked about that just in relation to Savage Worlds in general. Of like, it feels very hard in like D&D to make a character that's useful without making a character that like does a bunch of damage or like you know is like built for combat. Like there's just something about Savage Worlds that makes it like I can totally make characters that aren't built for combat and still feel like I have a place in the campaign and a place in the party. Like for some reason it just does that so well. And it just feels so easy to kind of, at least sometimes, kind of like pivot into slightly other things, like partway through builds. Like when you just randomly just like cold cocked those two dudes, and then it was just like, I think
I'm a boxer.
I think I'm gonna put a bunch of points into fighting. I think I'm a boxer now, and that just carries through the rest of the campaign. It's I guess Mohan's a boxer.
Yeah.
Like
That was just such like a story guiding mechanic sort of thing where it's like I got a couple of lucky rolls on a time where it felt like really important that we didn't shoot people and like make a bunch of noise. I'm like, well, yeah, that's like a niche that we don't really have. So I'm like, well, that's something I can roll Mohan into because I made him as such a generalist that it's like, well, I feel like we have a bunch of gunslingers, and like most of my utility comes from like character interaction. I don't feel like I had even with like brawling, just because of the setting, I felt it was kind of like it's hard to.
You were bringing a holy sword to a six-shooter
fight. Yeah, and like
Into a giant mech fight.
yeah, and so it was kind of like, but it was a niche thing of like, oh, what if we need to knock these dudes out without killing them or without making a bunch of noise? I'm like, okay, well, that's something we'll hand to you. Unfortunately, it was also combined with his abysmal stealth. Like, really, truly terrible stealth due to his hindrances, and then just because he had those hindrances, I didn't stat him into any stealth, because it's just like...
I just love, too, that, like, he was literally clumsy because it's not his body.
Yeah.
Like, he's not used to those dimensions.
He has no... My like, internal idea was that he just didn't have... His muscle memory was all wrong, and, like... that didn't translate well to like small motor moves and like messing with devices or like trying to sneak, and he's just kind of clumsy. It's like swinging a fist, it's like cool, yeah, fine, shooting a gun.
I know
it's
closed
like,
swing.
yeah.
That muscle memory's easy enough.
Exactly. And it's like, but it's also that's like muscle memory that's like built into Mohan, like old Mohan, right? Is like, I know how to throw a punch, I know how to take a hit. Like, that's just like, you know, literally muscle memory, but like messing with little things, it's like, Mohan never did that.
I like to
in
think when Mohan, not Mohan, walks through the pearly gates, Mohan, actual Mohan, was on the other side and is like, did all right, partner. Shakes his hand.
Sorry about all the scars and stuff. And your balls. A couple of times.
They aren't my balls anymore. You did sleep with my wife, though, so I'm going to have to throw you out.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I couldn't break my cover.
I'm honestly fairly surprised Ed survived the whole campaign. I even didn't go down all that often, but like
I'm surprised Bogus survived.
between my like fairly low toughness anyway, and then it getting down to point for the small hindrance.
That's something I noticed early on in combats is you guys did not build tough characters. It was Mohan and everybody. I mean, after you became a vampire, it helped because you got extra toughness for being undead. But I was just like, oh yeah, I rolled like 7 damage or 6 damage. That's not that much. What's your toughness? 2. That's a wound. That's a wound. What's yours? 2. Well, that's a wound. Like it felt very easy to give you guys
a lot of. It was a lot of 4s at the very least.
Yeah,
it was.
Mine was a 4.
Mine should have been.
I had a
5.
2 parry.
I actually had a little bit of parry, but like I should have had a 5 toughness, but I had a 4. Like, and that was something I picked up on really early on as well. Was just like,
well, it's
See,
like
like
a lot
a
of
lot of-
strategize
yeah,
because
it's
we
like,
were
everybody's.
It was glass cannony across the board with you guys.
But something I love about Savage Worlds, and like we've talked about liking it with the Star Wars system as well, is like it feels like combats matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been shot. I will carry that wound with me for a while.
Sometimes for weeks.
Yeah,
I loved that it was always Grimes who got his ass kicked
Well,
for the first
it was
like
always
3
Grimes,
quarters.
and it was always a concussion. Yeah. It was,
the concussion that made me stupid.
that boy can't afford to take
When-
any more brain damage.
I don't remember. I think it was Mohan got a wound to the face, and the way the dice fell, it gave him the 1-eye hindrance.
Yeah, I've got 3 stars.
Right, but it was a temporary wound. It was a temporary wound that gave you like the 1-eye hindrance like temporarily, or whatever. And then the next wound I took was the exact same dice falls, and I just went. It was like so. It's like so. I roll it, and I was just like, oh fuck. I'm pretty sure I know what this means, and it's just like, and now I'm blind. Like, and I was at the point. It was like quite often we had like wounds taking so long to heal at that point.
Yeah.
Like even that last.
Well, because all your figures were terrible.
Well, and
you had negatives from the wounds.
Yeah.
You guys,
Yeah,
when you're
it's-
getting hit, sometimes it's for 2 or 3
you know,
wounds.
and it's like if you're playing a modern day campaign, like you get bonuses on those vigor rolls to healing based off of like the available level of like medical knowledge. That I was just like, how many vigor rolls to heal this wound do I have to fail before I just retire this character? Because it's like, and like I think I like luckily somebody was able to like first aid the issue away like immediately. But I was just like, if I fail even a couple of vigor rolls and I'm just blind, it's like I'm probably gonna I'll head back to the headquarters in Confluent City and I'll roll up a new character because
it's just like, what can
because I'm out of this campaign.
Yeah,
Which
a
is,
blind sniper is a hard one to play.
but it's an interesting.
Why is your shotgun so long? So I can swing it around and bonk someone.
Well, that was and I made that joke so many times early on in this campaign. They're like, I need a gun for a man who can't shoot. And he comes back with a sawed-off shotgun in a leg holster. He's like, this was made for a blind man. Couldn't see so well, so he just shoot where he hear the other guy moving around. He was in the gunfight in the saloon. He couldn't hear the other fellow because the piano player. So he shot the piano player, and they hang him. Like it's like I don't necessarily want to play that character,
Right.
But it's like, but I kind of find that interesting in Savage Worlds, where it's like characters can end up removed from a campaign just because they're debilitated in a way that's like. I can't really keep
especially
going with
because we
characters
like to every time you get wounds, you're taking injuries.
We like playing with
like
kind of brutal.
We like.
But it
Well,
goes
and
both
it also
Yeah.
it also would have helped that we were really stupid with our Benny.
Well, and it didn't help that we quite often just refuse to take cover.
Yeah.
Gunfight breaks out, we all just stand out in the middle of the street and gun everybody down.
Because we're action heroes.
We're not supposed to take
All of a sudden, it's like, Grimes is down, Mohan's dead, but it only took us 2 rounds to kill 12 men, so that's pretty impressive.
Jefferson
Our
one shot all
job
of them,
here is done.
like in that fight where we got jumped by the bounty hunters, and all of a sudden we realized halfway through that Grimes was not shooting to kill; he was just shooting to incapacitate. Was so funny. Where it's just like a fight breaks out, it's just like shoot this guy in the
blow
dick,
his kneecap
shoot
off,
this guy in the leg, shoot the gun out of that guy's hands. Like it's like Grimes is so petty about this fight and is so unimpressed with these assholes that he's just like maim.
Well, yeah, you're one to talk, Mr. Buffalo Rifle to the groin as well.
I felt so bad about that.
You know those in Futurama, in the like Amazon place where there's the guys who died by snoo before? It's just skeletons with shattered pelvises. That's that guy. That was that guy.
He was just like, kill me.
Kill me. Nah, partner.
Yeah, there was
Shame.
definitely felt like there was a lot more weight and a lot more
Grimes
stakes to be lost. Especially like I was prepared to lose Grimes. Like I was prepared for him to die because I was gonna play him how I would, which was like a fucking bastard. And until like he kind of like at the end was like.
He had his arc.
Yeah, his arc.
It's an arc that it's kind of like the low and then like curves up at the end, you know. So it's like that long. When he curves up at the end.
What I like about Grimes is like he comes across as he's so goofy, but then we're consistently reminded of just like how dangerous he actually is. Like there's just all these moments like where it's like people are making fun of Grimes, or it's always foolish boy, or just like don't let Grimes handle this, or leave Grimes here. But then like there's just moments where
literally
it's
like kills the vampire that everyone was struggling with.
Well, and like
no, Bogus also helps.
I missed all my shots. Like going up on exactly. Going up the mountain with and like with those criminals who were just poisoning people to pick through their pockets. Yeah. And there's two people standing there with guns drawn, like one on Bogus and one on Grimes, like don't move a fucking muscle. And Grimes just casually draws and kills both of them. And it's just like these guys don't know that they're dealing with like an actual gunslinger. And he continues to do that the whole campaign. He's just goofy.
He maybe quick draws, kills both of them, and then proceeds to rob all those people.
Well, also being on a date.
What was her name again?
No. Katie?
Yay! Character progression!
You could have guessed Katie and gotten...
Well, it's because you said it like one out of
five.
five.
You said it like...
I just love that like Grimes is just simultaneously just like
he's like this laid back
goofy
dude,
Mr. Beating his way through some situations and like trying to smooth everybody like comes across, and then just like just consistently proving how like just phenomenally dangerous and deadly he is, and like remorseless, and it's like that swing back and forth is just really cool every time.
Yeah, it was definitely like an amazing character. Like I was like, dang, like when we were like, this is coming to an end, I was like really sad.
Yeah.
I play Grimes every day of her life.
I was like, I'm not gonna lie, as we were getting closer to the end, I was 100% expecting Bogus to bite the bullet. If it was even before or at the final boss fight, I was well prepared for Bogus to not make it.
That's what we're saying. Like the final boss fight was not easy. You guys had a lot of wild cards you're fighting against. You had kind of the trifecta upstairs, which was really only two scary combatants, and the other Eye of Providence up there. Yeah. But like, it's like you have to siege this place and like open gunfight with these guys, and then all of a sudden the heavy hitters start coming out, and each one of those werewolves was like a low tier boss level enemy, and there's multiple of them that you have to get through to get to the boss fight. So it was set up to be pretty brutal.
Yeah, I liked the first couple rounds of sniper shots.
So
it's just
so clean.
Just like 30 damage, 25 damage, just like
exploding people.
Just like immediately taking people out.
I can't believe I rolled through like 3 werewolves and then got up to the top and just shot Grimes and then missed again. Rolled two
Snake Eyes.
You're telling me I wrestled with the same werewolf the whole time and lost? I was so annoyed.
And the bad part is that werewolf got shaken like 3 times by not just you, but by me, and then
He kept shrugging off. I'm like, okay, he's shaking. Like, now's my chance to turn it. Nope.
And they just, they're good at unshaking.
I'm glad that like even if I wasn't in all that,
too. So
even if I wasn't in all that much of the final boss fight, I got to delete a boss from that. boss fight.
that was so because there's so much setup
Specifically, your brother.
Yeah.
And like the thing I loved is it felt like every character arc, by both the story, the characters' decisions, my decisions, and the way the dice fell. Like, the character arcs, it was that thing that happens all the time in RPGs, where, like, the dice are just like, yes, let's do the thing that's super cool for the story right now. Where, like, you got your redemption arc of, like, finally finishing your brother off for good, and there's this, like, this foolish boy to, well, I'm trying there, you know? Like, this, like, progression there, and Bogus going from his like, this is all nonsense to like, how can I weaponize this?
For some, it's a redemption arc. For some, it's a fall into madness.
So, did you understand at any point what the metaphor was with the last bit of scratch advice?
After talking
Empty
about
Thrones?
I'm assuming it had to do with me turning Potter into...
No, it had to do with you being the next Gladstone.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. Is like, you're literally going from mad scientist to mad scientist, gathering all the notes to do all the heinous, evil, mad science. That's why, like, he's like, oh, this guy's doing horrible, evil experiments that are unholy on the undead. Here's a bottle of his wine. You should go check it out and steal his notes. So you do it too.
I kind of figured it was about.
Okay, I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was about like
I thought it was
Potter
about
as well,
Potter.
where it's like you are leaving Potter with like all of your research materials, turning him into a mad scientist, and you're never home. It's like you know the throne does not stay empty for long. Yeah,
I was never mean to Potter.
You guys were all mean to Potter.
I wasn't mean to Potter.
As soon as he was like the supernatural, fascinating. It was like, I regret being mean to you.
I'm sorry I freaked you out with the canine hepatitis.
Sorry I made you skin that deer.
Yeah, no, I wasn't expecting. It
That
makes
was
sense.
more of what it was. What I was
It makes
going
sense,
with
but it was also one of those things where it's like, yes, Bogus is becoming more of a mad scientist, a danger to society, but also Bogus is still competent enough.
He was crazier than some of the mad scientists.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was a nutbag.
I mean, the further along he would have gotten.
Bogus would not destroy the world, because how else is he gonna get his whiskeys?
Were there ever going to be any repercussions with my elk god coat?
Not really.
I figured.
It was more, I mean, like, I was considering giving it some sort of mystical properties against certain things, but it was more just to have the cool coat and carry on the elk god jokes and the make sure you don't wear it around any, like, native people. That was always fun.
It looked neat, so I shot it.
The American
Yeah.
way.
The American
Yes, because his other thing he said to you was to keep to your work and the future is all yours. And that's like,
It was like,
if you
everything-
keep diving into all this stuff, then man, you're gonna have the future's all yours. You get to be the next evil mad scientist.
Hooray!
Hooray!
I think it's probably fitting then.
The protagonist to antagonist pipeline is very strong.
It's something about like dying hero or living long enough to make Frankenstein's monster or something.
to
Exactly.
make Professor Bogus's monster Bogus.
Yeah.
Because
Gilligan's
Bogus
monster.
wants to turn himself into a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Or Bogus's monster.
And surely that cannot have any negative consequences.
Step 1, kill yourself. Step 2, fuck.
Wait a minute.
Step 2, have your assistant bring you back to life using these notes. Step 3, he fails miserably.
but then you'll
You kill yourself, he hovers over and he goes, say I have canine hepatitis, run hell! And he takes all your research and fucks off to a tower somewhere.
But that was Grimes, or not Grimes. Hey, you told him about the canine.
You were the one who started the talk about the canine hepatitis. I just referenced that there was a reason you were so cautious about it.
Grimes Grimes is not clever enough to do that. He was clever enough to harass him physically, but not
Well, you're a schoolyard bully.
You're a schoolyard.
Yeah, I tried.
You literally lassoed him on Spanky and like dragged him.
By a scarf.
Grabbed it by a scarf,
yeah.
trying to
I
steal
tried to
it.
steal it, and then I accidentally choked it.
Well, just like most schoolyard bullies, they try for something fairly innocuous and end up scarring you for life.
Repressed memories of hair.
Hey, Grimes spent most of this campaign as an asshole. Is it really all that?
It's really-
surprising
yeah.
that
Yeah.
Grimes bullied Potter.
But maybe
It didn't
in the
help.
future he
It
could
didn't
do
help that you named him Potter, honestly, because it just makes everybody go Potter. And then it's just like we just
It's such a
rode
normal
this.
last name.
There is no. You
Goodness
have to
you.
understand. There's no winning.
There is-
Erickson names anybody
absolutely.
anything, and we're just
Absolutely.
Mr.
Buckwheat.
Landinius.
Buckwheat.
Like yeah, like
Yo, Dragon Ball nuts.
Draco's Blandinius. Yeah. Yo, Dragon Ball, bro.
Hey, buckwheat.
Vestigial faucet. Right, testicle faucet.
Testicle faucet.
Yeah, you can't. No, you're absolutely right.
There's
There's no way.
It's you can't take it into account because it's just never gonna.
You just assume they're gonna ruin it, so you just
gotta roll with it.
you catch the
we-
ones that are way too easy to make fun of, and you just accept
Yeah,
that.
no one's named Richard.
I swear, I think we spent like 20 minutes making the Potter jokes the moment you introduced it.
That's actually another behind the scenes question. The sheriff in his hometown of Kansas.
Buckwheat. Oh, you mean
Oh.
the actual
We
sheriff.
never met him.
Uh-huh.
We only ever interacted with his deputy, Buckwash.
Mhm.
What's the deal with the sheriff?
He's
Well,
drunk.
what would he have been like when we interacted with him?
drunk and passed out, probably.
Yeah.
He was useless.
Yeah.
Buckwash did his best. Buckwash was the hero that town had to deal with. Because what they deserved was long gone. The actual sheriff was useless and drunk all the time.
As is tradition.
Well, go ahead, stay for Canada. I'm not the one.
Yeah.
Good old
Good old Buckwash.
Good old Buckwash. Buckwheat. Buckwild. Whatever else we call him.
I never actually came up with why he was called Buckwash. There wasn't a specific answer. You guys are like, where did you get the nickname Buckwash? Like, well, went hunting this one time and we were well, it's a long story. It's just never going to allude to some sort of weird thing that happened while hunting, but never going to get an actual
That's
full
fine.
story.
It's the
We
classic.
didn't care. We didn't care enough to find out.
Well, whenever I describe a guy as having an underbite so bad if it rained it'd make a puddle, you're immediately like, this guy's a fucking idiot.
Well, that and he spent all his time trying to arrest us, more or less. It would have been fun to go back through that town while you were wanted.
No, it wouldn't have.
That's true. Your wife was there. That'd have been a
The
fucked up.
conversation, stick 'em up, would have been funny. You having a dual Buckwash.
I can't believe that guy that Grimes just shot in the head just completely survives, totally fine. It's like Grimes shoots him in the face, healing spell, removes the wound. You should probably just go get a drink, buddy. Get
Oh, you mean Sly Eyes?
I was really.
I'm calling you out.
The second time it happened, I was like, oh no, he's back. And then Scler was like, you shot his paw. I didn't even consider the fact that it was
Glenn Slides Raw.
Square is just shouting that over like everybody laughing. Like, you shot his ball. Like,
Well, I wasn't gonna fucking. First of all, bringing back to life was disrespectful because my gang tried to turn me in. That's
know.
why I left.
I just.
And killed most of them, except for
Slides.
And killed most of them.
Except for Googly Eyes.
Once again, in classic Grimes, where it's just like, Grimes, we're turning you in. It's like, oh, are ya? Guns down like 6 dudes. Like,
Whoa. And then later, that guy being like, you killed everybody for no good reason. And then you just shoot him in the head.
That's why every time you threaten it, I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you like I did everyone else.
Just like old Tom McGraw.
Tom McGraw. Once again,
Hold it!
but it's such like once again perfectly in character. Like what is Grimes' first thing to do when someone even barely gets in his way at all? Just kill him. I'm super good at it. Like
oh shit, he's got a badge. Bang.
Yeah, it's like the easiest way for this character to like deal with the obstacle. And it's like, oh, we're on a mission. I can't let anyone stop us from our mission.
It's the
So mate.
shit. It's the cops. You idiot! We are the cops.
That kind of thought is like how often the like Ed burning down a church thing came up, and it's just like hey, I had to burn that building down. Then again, you're right. There are lots of other buildings that I've suggested we burn down over the course. Now I'm starting to sense a theme.
Was arson a last resort, or is that just like natural for me at a certain point?
Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I think one of the best jokes that just kept going on and on until it finally died off and we had nobody else to me was the Ed jokes. Name's Ed. That's no name for a lady.
Another subtle like favorite moment of mine was the first person to just like accept your name and be nice to you, and how like I could see your shoulders tense as they asked what your name was, and whenever you were like Ed, and I don't remember what the rules.
I think it was Toad, and she was like,
The first person we talked to that didn't really give me the whole like that's no name for a lady was the private investigator guy.
Was it R. Blevins?
Yeah. In Confluence City, like he was like the first person that for a while in the campaign I was keeping track of people who didn't say it.
I just remember the moments of like
him.
Oh.
like he tenses up.
Here it comes. Oh, that person was actually just nice to me.
For a while it was like him and Professor Grace Crosby. Like partially just because like she didn't really get a chance to say it. But that came up a lot, and there was that and the Professor Bogus. Of course it is.
Of course it is.
I kept forgetting to do that sometimes. Just what?
Right.
The first couple of times the what thing came up was really funny.
Well, because I'm on Discord, so when audio cuts out, I don't hear it. And
it was perfect that at the start you were Digital Jerry, and so when the audio cut out,
Robo Jerry.
Robo Jerry.
Oh, real Jerry.
That was real Jerry.
Robo Jerry is real Jerry. This Jerry's Robo Jerry.
Right.
Yes.
He is a soul currently inhabiting Jerry.
What do you think, Professor? What?
Exactly.
No name for it.
Professor, grab me the bottle of whiskey if you see it. What?
Selective hearing. I love it. Are there any other questions, thoughts, moments, anything else?
I mean, there's like 50 hours of moments.
We can talk about this forever.
We've got 50 episodes worth of moments, but I guess we're kind of getting close to a good time, I think. We've had our long rants and stuff, and I mean, start to finish, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed running this game. The characters were exceptional. The way they all interacted together was so much fun, and I think it was a really good campaign. I'm happy with how it went.
Yeah, well, it's a well-run campaign.
Heck of an organization.
Really pulling our pants down.
Our next campaign is just going to go downhill because I'm going to be the one running it.
You just got to make sure that there's people with ridiculous accents, and you call us out if we copy them back to you.
Are you making fun of my accent? Are you mocking me?
Good stuff. Well, thank you all for playing. I enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching. Watched through to this point. Thanks. We really enjoyed running this game and look forward to the next one. We've got lots of stuff coming up. We've got plans and notes and things ready for games and rumors and plans in at least 3 different systems. If you want more Savage Worlds, it's coming absolutely down the line. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next story that we tell.